So we are now in the old city of Nizwa here. It is about 9 a.m. and I just had breakfast at a rooftop terrace with a view of some of the main historic sites here that we're gonna see later. And I had some Omani bread with cheese and meat, and it is called rugak. Not sure if I'm saying that correctly. And yeah, I had this with some coffee and fresh orange juice for about €5. So yeah, a very reasonable price for breakfast there. And as you can see, we are now in the maze of streets with beautiful traditional houses, and everything here looks like it did hundreds of years ago. This place really feels frozen in time, and I really like the fact that they preserve these houses. So in this maze of small medieval streets, you have a few guest houses, but no international hotels. And I am actually staying in one of those guest houses. It is called Omani House Inn, and it is actually one of the cheaper ones, but very clean and comfortable. And yeah, I like the traditional style of this building. It has a beautiful garden and a rooftop terrace. And yeah, I am paying about €38 a night for this room, which I think is a really good price, considering that we are inside a UNESCO World Heritage protected neighborhood. I also quickly wanted to show you the currency of Oman, which is very interesting. So 1 rial equals 2.4 euros. And that's why you have bills of half a rial, and then you have bills of 1, and then you have bills of 100 paisas, which is 0.1 rial. So when you are used to euros and dollars, you always think that the currency is stronger than the currency of the country you are in. But here the local currency is way stronger, so you have to be careful with the prices. So this is Nizwa, a very historic city at the base of the Western Hajar Mountains in Oman. So I took a bus from Muscat to get here. It was operated by the National Bus Company of Oman, Muwasalat, and the ticket cost me just 1.7 Omani rial, which is very cheap for a 3-hour journey, but there are only 2 buses per day. And in general, there isn't much public transportation in Oman. Most people use cars. But yeah, I only have a few days in the country, and I wanted to check out a historic town, and this is probably the most accessible one, and also one of the most famous ones. So yeah, the city of Nizwa was the capital of Oman in the 6th and 7th centuries, and it has a very strong connection to the religion of Islam. The Prophet Muhammad actually wrote a letter to the people of Nizwa here, and then they sent a delegation to Medina, and they brought back the teachings, which then led the locals to embrace Islam. And after that, the city here started flourishing as a trade hub and education center. So many mosques and markets and fortifications were built, including the stunning Nizwa Fort, which we're gonna see later. First, let's go check out one of the city's most famous mosques. So the first building that we're gonna see here in Nizwa is the Al-Kala Mosque, and this mosque was built in the 17th century, and it obviously has a lot of significance for the religion of Islam in the country of Oman. Now here in Nizwa and in Muscat it was actually the same. You can visit mosques as a non-Muslim, but only between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. Alright, let's go have a look at the Souq here in Nizwa. So we got some pottery. These pots right here are to put water inside for tea, I guess. Then here we have cups, key rings, tourist souvenirs. This place, Nizwa, is very well known for pottery, and I guess you can see that here inside the souk. Yeah, lots of handicrafts. And here you can see the walls of the old city. Wow, this looks amazing. Check out these walls with the palm trees. And everything here has been meticulously restored. Let's check out the interior section of the souk. Wow, it smells like a million spices in here. Here we have nuts, These are very common here. Tea and coffee, of course. Here we have some Omani desserts. Looks tasty. Here we have some coffee and some tea and some spices. We also have fresh fruits and vegetables here. And then here some bags seem to be empty. And yeah, some of the tea that you can buy here. Let's see what's in this part. This looks like some kind of common area. Not sure. Here we have a wood burning stove. Not sure what they use that for, but looks very authentic, this place. Let's go back out into the heat. Man, it is hot. We are in mid-May right now, and the temperature is 39 degrees Celsius, and it is 10:30 a.m. So I have noticed this in several places, including in Muscat. Life happens after dark, because between noon and 6 p.m. you have well over 40 degrees Celsius, and you spend your life inside. For my part, I don't mind being outside for a few days in that heat. But if I had to live here, I would probably do the same thing. Just stay inside until the sun goes down. Because at night, this place really comes to life. Alright, here we have something called the goat market. But I think that there are no goats here. But yeah, this is what the goat market looks like. I guess you would have the goats over there, and then you can pick your favorite goat and haggle, I suppose. Now, one thing you should know about Nizwa is that there is still plenty of restoration going on here, and construction as well. As you can see over here, they are often building sort of new buildings in the old style and then connecting them to the ancient ruins. It's actually very hard to know here what is original and what isn't. But I have to say that they have done an excellent job restoring these old buildings, because now they stand here as witnesses of time. Alright guys, now it is time to check out the Nizwa Fort right here. So we are now in the courtyard of Nizwa Fort, which is actually the most visited place in Oman. The cashier just told me that, I didn't know. And the fort was built in the 17th century during the reign of Imam Nasser bin Murshid al-Yarubi. But it is actually built on the foundations of a much older site, and the walls are apparently 1200 years old. And yeah, I am not gonna stay in this courtyard for very long. We have about 42 degrees Celsius now, and the cashier also told me that this is shoulder season, so there are still a few tourists here, but not many. So here we are now in the small alleyways inside the fort. So castle and fort. To the fort. This is it. This massive round tower. This is very interesting. You got some pitfalls here. So basically, enemies wouldn't have been able to get up to the top because there were some holes. Luckily, these holes have been sealed. There's another one. Wow, this is really cool. Even though walking up these steps is quite exhausting. So the fort itself here isn't air conditioned, but thanks to the very thick walls, it doesn't get too hot inside. Wow, look at this, guys. This is the top of the fort. And you can see the cannons They are all original. Let's go check out the views up here. Now I am at the highest point. Oh man, I am getting roasted. But here you can see the town of Nizwa very well. You got the old city over here on this side of the river, and then the newer town on the other side. But the river is almost completely dry now. And then the Western Hajar Mountains in the background. Quite a dramatic scene. Alright, let's go back down and then see the other parts of the castle. Here you can see these traps, these pitfalls. Now it's actually glass. This is your proper medieval Arabic fort here. So here you can see a nice illustration of what the fort was used for. These are the steps that I just took. Then you have the pitfalls, more pitfalls, and big gates. And then here the main platform. And yeah, that is the fort here in Nizwa. So we are now inside the castle and they explain the history of Nizwa and actually the history of the world. What else do we have here? I am pleased to report that this place is air conditioned. So I'm going to show you some of the artifacts in this museum here, mostly objects that were used during different periods. And one very interesting part about the history of this region is that they had a very sophisticated water irrigation system called aflash. This room might actually be my favorite in this castle museum because it has all these travel diaries from explorers and merchants who visited Nizwa. For example, we have British Lieutenant Colonel S.B. Miles in 1885, and then they just describe the city, how it was thriving, and all the local customs and so on. Really fascinating. After the fort, I checked out the Nizwa Museum, which has lots of interesting artifacts from different eras and explains the town's eventful history. I then went to a rooftop cafe and watched the sunset while listening to the calls to prayer emanating from the various mosques around Nizwa. Later that evening, I went to a local restaurant where I got some delicious chicken mandi, one of the national dishes of Oman. This rice plate is also very popular in Yemen and other countries in the Middle East. And that is it for today. As always, thanks very much for watching and see you in the next one. Goodbye.